The sun burned hot over the Arizona desert. James McCarthy wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked across the empty land. He had been tracking 3 missing cattle since morning. The ranch owner would be angry if he came back without them. James was 30 years old, but he felt much older. The war had done that to him. 5 years had passed since the fighting ended, but the memories stayed with him every day. At night, he could not sleep. When he closed his eyes, he saw the faces of dead men. He heard the guns firing. He remembered his younger brother falling in battle and how he could not save him. That was why James came to this lonely place. The ranch was far from towns and people. He wanted to be alone with his pain. The wide, empty desert made him feel small. Sometimes that helped. Sometimes it did not. He rode his horse slowly, following the tracks in the dirt. The cattle had wandered far from the ranch. Too far. They were getting close to Apache land now. James felt nervous. The Apache people did not want white men on their land. He could not blame them. The soldiers and settlers had taken everything from them. Then he heard it. Gunshots. Not many, just a few. Then men laughing. The sound was cruel and mean. James pulled his horse to a stop. He should turn back. This was not his business. He had learned in the war to keep his head down and stay alive. But something made him move forward. He tied his horse to a rock and walked quietly toward the sounds. He climbed up a small hill and looked down. 3 men stood in a circle. They were rough-looking men with guns and dirty clothes. Bounty hunters, James thought. The worst kind of men. In the middle of the circle was a woman. She was young, maybe 25 years old. Her skin was brown and her long black hair fell past her shoulders. She wore simple clothes made of leather and cloth. An Apache woman, she was hurt. Blood ran down her left shoulder. But she did not look scared. Her eyes were full of fire and anger. She held a knife in her good hand. One of the men had a cut on his arm. She had fought back. "Just grab her, Tom," one man said. "We got to get her to the fort. They pay good money for Apache prisoners. She cut me." The man named Tom yelled. "I'm going to make her sorry for that." The woman spoke in Apache language. James did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was telling them she would never stop fighting. The third man raised his gun. "Maybe we just shoot her. Save ourselves the trouble." Something broke inside James. Maybe it was seeing another human being treated like an animal. Maybe it was remembering all the bad things he had seen in the war. Maybe he was just tired of watching people hurt each other. He stood up and fired his rifle into the air. The 3 men jumped and turned toward him. James walked down the hill with his rifle ready. His hands were steady. The war had taught him how to look dangerous when he needed to. "That's enough," James said. His voice was calm but hard. "Leave her alone." "This ain't your business, mister," Tom said. "We got legal right to capture Apache runners." I said leave her alone. James aimed his rifle at Tom's chest. "I fought in the war. I'm a good shot. You want to find out how good?" The 3 men looked at each other. They saw one man, but they also saw a man who knew how to use his gun. A man who looked like he had nothing to lose. "There's 3 of us," one man said. "I know," James replied. "I can shoot 2 of you before you reach your guns. Which 2 want to die? You decide." It was a long, quiet moment. The desert wind blew dust around them. Finally, Tom spit on the ground. "She ain't worth dying for," he said. "Come on, boys. We'll find easier money." The 3 men walked to their horses. They rode away, but Tom looked back with anger in his eyes. James knew he had made enemies today. He did not care. When the men were gone, James lowered his gun. He turned to look at the Apache woman. She was staring at him with those fierce dark eyes. Her knife was still ready in her hand. Blood dripped from her shoulder onto the ground. James held up his hands to show he meant no harm. He pointed to her wound and then to his horse. She understood. He was offering help. She shook her head and said something in Apache. Her voice was strong despite the pain. She did not trust him. Why would she? He was a white man. White men had killed her people, burned their homes, taken their land. James slowly reached into his bag. The woman raised her knife. He moved very slowly and pulled out a cloth. He showed it to her. Just a cloth, nothing dangerous. He pointed to her shoulder again. She watched him with sharp eyes. Then she took one step toward him, and another, but on the third step her legs gave out. The blood loss was too much. She fell forward. James caught her before she hit the ground. She was light in his arms, but he could feel the strength in her body. Even unconscious, she held on to her knife. He looked around the empty desert. He could not take her to the ranch. The ranch owner might send her to the soldiers. He could not leave her here to die. Then he remembered the canyon. 2 months ago, while tracking cattle, he had found a small canyon with a cave. There was water from a spring. It was hidden and safe. No one knew about it except him. James carried the woman to his horse. He placed her carefully in front of his saddle and climbed up behind her. He rode away from the ranch toward the hidden canyon. The ride took 2 hours. The sun was setting when they arrived. Orange and red light painted the desert rocks. James carried the woman into the cave and laid her on the ground. He made a fire and heated water. He cleaned the wound on her shoulder. The bullet had gone through the flesh but missed the bone. That was good luck. He used the cloth to stop the bleeding and wrapped it tight. Then he sat back and waited. He put his rifle next to him and watched the woman breathe. Her face looked peaceful now, not angry. She was pretty, he realized. But more than that, she looked proud. Even hurt and sleeping, she looked like someone who would never give up. James wondered what her name was. He wondered what had happened to make her run. He wondered if saving her life today would bring him more trouble. But for the first time in 5 years, he had done something that felt right. In the war, he had taken lives. Today, he had saved one. Maybe that meant something. Maybe it did not. The woman stirred and made a sound. James moved back to give her space. When she opened her eyes and saw him, fear flashed across her face. But then she saw the bandage on her shoulder. She saw the water he had placed next to her. She saw him sitting far away, not coming closer. She sat up slowly, pain crossing her face. She touched the bandage and then looked at him. Her eyes asked a question. James pointed to the cave entrance. "You can go," he said, knowing she probably did not understand his words. "When you are strong enough. I will not stop you." He made gestures with his hands, pointing to her, then to the open desert, then back to her. He was trying to say, "You are free." The woman stared at him for a long time. Then she reached for the water and drank. She kept her eyes on him the whole time, watching, waiting to see what he would do. James just sat there and fed the fire. Outside, the desert night grew cold and dark. Inside the cave, 2 strangers sat in silence. One was running from a past full of death. The other was running from a future with no freedom. Neither knew that this night would change both of their lives forever. When James opened his eyes, the sun was just starting to rise. He had slept near the cave entrance, far from the woman. His rifle lay across his chest. The fire had died during the night, leaving only gray ashes. He sat up carefully and looked into the cave. The woman was awake. She sat against the cave wall, watching him. Her knife was in her hand. She had not slept, he realized. She had stayed awake all night, watching him, not trusting him. James stood slowly and held up his empty hands. "I will get more water," he said, even though she could not understand him. He took the leather water bag and walked to the spring. When he came back, he placed the water near the cave entrance, not close to her. Then he backed away. The woman watched his every move. James picked up his rifle. The woman's body went tense, ready to fight or run. But James just walked to his horse and put the rifle away. He came back with some dried meat and bread wrapped in cloth. He put the food next to the water and then sat down far from her. The woman looked at the food, then at him. She was hungry. He could see it in her eyes, but she did not move. "Eat," James said. He made eating gestures with his hands. "I already ate." That was a lie. His stomach was empty. But she needed the food more than he did. After a long time, the woman reached for the water. She drank, keeping her eyes on him. Then she took the bread and ate it slowly. She did not touch the meat. James remembered that some Apache people had different ways about food. Maybe she did not eat meat prepared by strangers. Or maybe she just did not trust anything he gave her. He stood up. "I have to go to work," he said. "I will come back tonight." He pointed to himself, then to the desert, then made a gesture like the sun moving across the sky. He pointed to the cave and then to himself again. He was trying to say, "I am leaving, but I will return." The woman said nothing. She just watched him with those dark, careful eyes. James rode back to the ranch. His boss, Mr. Thompson, was waiting for him. Thompson was a big man with gray hair and a hard face. But he was fair. He paid his workers on time and did not cheat them. "Where were you, McCarthy?" Thompson asked. "Tracking the cattle," James said. "Found them near the canyon country. Brought them back after dark. Thompson looked at him for a long moment. James kept his face calm. He had learned to lie in the war. Sometimes lies kept you alive. All right, Thompson finally said. Get to work. Those fences need fixing on the north side. James worked all day. He fixed fences, moved cattle, and carried water. But his mind was in the canyon. He wondered if the woman had left. He wondered if she was getting better or worse. He wondered if he would find the cave empty when he returned. When the sun started to set, James told the other ranch hands he was tired and rode away. He stopped at the ranch house and took food from the kitchen when the cook was not looking. Bread, some vegetables, dried fruit, and a jar of honey. He also took clean cloth for bandages. The ride to the canyon took longer in the dark. When James reached the cave, he made noise on purpose. He did not want to surprise the woman. He called out even though she did not know his words. A small fire burned inside the cave. The woman was still there. She sat up when he entered. She looked stronger today. The color had come back to her face. James put the food down and checked her wound. She let him unwrap the old bandage. The wound looked good. No infection. He cleaned it again and put on a fresh bandage. She watched his hands the whole time but did not pull away. When he finished, he pointed to himself. James, he said. He pointed to himself again. James, the woman stared at him. Then slowly she pointed to herself. Nalan, she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. Nalan, James repeated. He tried to say it the way she had said it. She nodded slightly. That was the first time she had shown any sign of acceptance. James smiled a little. Then he pointed to the food. Eat, Nalan. This time she reached for the food without waiting so long. She ate the bread and vegetables. She even ate some of the dried fruit. James watched her eat and felt something strange in his chest. It felt like satisfaction, like maybe he had done something good. That night, James slept outside the cave again. But this time, when he woke up in the morning, he found a blanket covering him. Nalan had covered him during the night. It was a small thing, but it meant something. It meant she was starting to trust him even just a little. The days fell into a pattern. James worked at the ranch during the day. At night, he came to the canyon with food and supplies. He changed Nalan's bandages and made sure she had water. Slowly, her wound healed. They started to learn each other's languages. James would point to things and say the English word. Nalan would tell him the Apache word: rock, water, fire, sky, tree, horse. James learned that Nalan was teaching him slowly, carefully. She was smart. She wanted to learn English, but she did not trust him completely yet. He understood. Trust had to be earned. One night, about a week after he found her, James woke up screaming. He was having one of his nightmares. In the dream, he was back in the war. He saw his brother falling. He heard the guns. He felt the fear. He sat up fast, breathing hard, his heart pounding. His hands were shaking. He was covered in sweat even though the night was cool. Then he felt a hand on his shoulder. Nalan was kneeling next to him. She had left the cave and come to him. She was speaking in Apache, her voice soft and low. He could not understand the words, but the sound was calming. Like a lullaby, like comfort. She kept her hand on his shoulder and kept speaking. Slowly, James's breathing calmed. His heart stopped racing. The fear went away. When he was calm, Nalan moved back. She sat near him, but not too close. She looked at him with understanding in her eyes. She knew about nightmares. She knew about fear and pain and loss. Thank you, James said quietly. Nalan nodded. She said something in Apache and gestured to her heart, then to the night sky, then to the ground. James did not understand the words, but he thought maybe she was saying that pain lives inside all of us. After that night, things changed between them. They were not just a man and a wounded woman anymore. They were two people who had both lost something. Two people who carried pain. Two people trying to survive. Nalan started to teach James more. She showed him how to read the desert, how to tell which plants had water inside them, how to know when a storm was coming by watching the sky and feeling the wind, how to walk quietly so animals would not run away. James taught her too. He taught her to read English words. He drew letters in the dirt and showed her how they made sounds. She learned fast, very fast. Sometimes James thought she was smarter than he was. One afternoon, James came to the canyon during the day instead of at night. It was his day off from the ranch. He brought seeds with him. Vegetable seeds. We can make a garden, he said to Nalan. He used simple English words now. She understood more every day. Food will grow here. Nalin looked at the seeds. Then she looked at him. Her face asked a question. Why are you doing this? Why are you helping me? James did not know how to answer in words she would understand. So he just started digging in the dirt near the spring. Nalin watched him for a while. Then she knelt down and started helping him dig. They worked together in the quiet afternoon. The sun was warm but not too hot. Birds sang in the rocks above them. For the first time in many years, James felt something like peace. They planted tomatoes, beans, and squash. Nalin showed him the Apache way of planting, where the plants helped each other grow. James showed her how his mother used to make rows in her garden back in Missouri, before the war, before everything changed. When they finished, they sat by the spring and drank water. Nalin spoke in slow, careful English. Why you help me? James thought about the question. He thought about the war. He thought about all the people he could not save. He thought about his brother. He thought about how he had been dead inside for 5 years, just walking around like a ghost. I do not know, he finally said. It was the truth. Maybe I need to help someone. To feel like a person again. Nalin looked at him for a long time. Then she said something in Apache. James looked confused. She tried to say it in English. You have bad spirits inside, from war, from death. Yes, James said quietly. Bad spirits. Bad memories. My people, Nalin said slowly. We have ways to let bad spirits go, to find peace. She touched her chest. I have bad spirits too. Soldiers kill my family, kill my people, take our land. I run, I fight. I do not want white man's prison. The reservation, James said. Reservation, Nalin repeated. Prison. They sat in silence. Two people from different worlds, both carrying pain, both trying to find a way to live with their memories. As the sun began to set, painting the canyon walls orange and gold, James realized something. He had come to the canyon to help Nalin heal. But maybe she was helping him heal too. Maybe they were saving each other. 3 weeks had passed since James saved Nalin. Her shoulder was almost completely healed now. She could move her arm without pain. The garden they planted together was starting to grow. Small green shoots pushed up from the dark earth. James came to the canyon every evening after work. Sometimes he stayed the whole night. Other times he rode back to the ranch before sunrise. The other ranch hands started to notice that James was different. He smiled more. He did not look so tired and sad. One day, Mr. Thompson called James into his office. James felt nervous. Had Thompson found out about Nalin? Sit down, McCarthy, Thompson said. His voice was not angry. James sat. Thompson looked at him with his sharp gray eyes. You've been here 6 months now. You are a good worker. But something has changed. You seem happier, more alive. James did not know what to say. He waited. I do not know what you are doing in your free time, Thompson continued, and I do not want to know. But whatever it is, keep doing it. A man who wants to live works better than a man who wants to die. Thompson waved his hand. That is all. Get back to work. James stood up and left. Outside, he breathed in relief. Thompson knew something was different, but he was not asking questions. That was good. That evening, James brought Nalin a book. It was a simple book with pictures and easy words. Children used it to learn reading. Nalin's eyes lit up when she saw it. They sat by the fire and James helped her read the words. She pointed to the pictures and said the Apache words first, then practiced the English words. She was hungry to learn. Every word was a tool. Every sentence was a weapon she could use to help her people. After the reading lesson, Nalin said she wanted to teach James something. She led him outside under the stars. The night was clear and beautiful. Millions of stars filled the black sky. Nalin sat on the ground and gestured for James to sit. She began to speak in Apache, slowly mixing in English words so he could understand. She told him about Apache ways of healing, about how her people believed that bad memories and bad spirits could make a person sick inside. We do ceremony, she explained. We sing, we pray. We talk to spirits. We ask them to take pain away. James listened. In his world, men did not talk about pain. They kept it inside and drank whiskey until they could not feel anything. But maybe the Apache way was better. Can you teach me? James asked. Nalin looked surprised. Then she nodded. She began to sing a soft song in Apache. The melody was simple but beautiful. It rose and fell like wind over the desert. James closed his eyes and listened. "This song is for letting go," Nalin explained. "You think of bad thing. You see it in your mind. Then you let it go into the wind. You sing it away." James tried to do what she said. He thought about his brother. He saw his brother's face in his mind, young and smiling before the war. Then he saw his brother falling in battle. The old pain came back sharp and hot. "Breathe," Nalin said softly. "Just breathe. See the pain. Do not run from it, look at it. Then let it go," James breathed. He looked at the pain instead of pushing it away. He had carried this pain for 5 years, holding it tight like a stone in his chest. Maybe it was time to put the stone down. Nalin sang her song again. This time James felt something shift inside him. The pain was still there, but it felt lighter somehow. Not gone, but not so heavy. When the song ended, they sat in silence. James felt tears on his face. He had not cried since the war ended. Men were not supposed to cry. But here in the dark canyon under the stars with this Apache woman who understood pain, he let himself cry. Nalin did not say anything. She just sat with him. Sometimes that was all a person needed, someone to sit with them in the dark. The next day, James went into town to buy supplies for the ranch. The town was small and dusty. As he walked down the main street, he heard men talking outside the saloon. "I heard there is an Apache woman running around," one man said. "Bounty hunters are still looking for her. Worth $50. James's blood went cold. He walked past slowly, listening. "They say she is dangerous," another man said. "Helped some families escape from the reservation. The soldiers want her bad." $50 is good money," the first man said. "If I see her, I am taking her in." James bought his supplies quickly and rode back to the ranch. That evening, he told Nalin what he had heard. She listened with a calm face, but he could see the fear in her eyes. "They will not stop looking," Nalin said quietly. "They never stop." "Then you need to leave," James said. "Go to Mexico." "You will be safe there," Nalin shook her head. "More of my people come here. They find the canyon. They need help." "I cannot leave them," James was confused. "What do you mean?" "What people?" Nalin took him to the back of the canyon. There, hidden behind rocks, were 3 more Apache people, an old woman, a young man, and a small child. They look scared and hungry. "They run from reservation," Nalin explained. "They hear about me. They come here for help. More will come." James understood now. The canyon had become a hiding place, a station for Apache families trying to escape the reservation. Nalin was not just saving herself. She was saving her people. "This is dangerous," James said. "Very dangerous." "I know," Nalin replied. "But what choice do I have? Let them suffer? Let them die? No, I must help." James looked at the 3 refugees. The old woman reminded him of his own grandmother. The child could not be more than 5 years old. How could he turn them away? "All right," James said. "I will help. But we need more food, more supplies, and we need to be very careful." Over the next few days, James brought more food to the canyon. He helped the refugees settle in a different part of the canyon where they would be hidden better. He taught the young Apache man some English words. The man's name was Dakota. He was brave and strong even though he was scared. The old woman's name was Casa. She was a medicine woman. She knew about healing plants and old ceremonies. She and Nalin worked together to find herbs in the desert. They made medicines for the child who had a bad cough. James and Nalin worked side by side every day now. They carried water. They expanded the garden. They made the canyon more livable. They became a team. One evening, Nalin taught James another ceremony. This one was about gratitude, about thanking the earth for life and food and water. They sat in a circle with Dakota, Casa, and the child. Casa sung in an old, cracked voice. The child clapped small hands. Nalin's voice rose clear and strong. James did not know the Apache words, but he understood the feeling. For the first time since the war, he felt like he belonged somewhere, like he was part of something bigger than his own pain. After the ceremony, James and Nalin walked to the edge of the canyon. They looked out at the desert under the moon. "You are different now," Nalin said. "When I first see you, you look like dead man walking. Now you look alive," James smiled. "You are different, too. When I first found you, you looked like you wanted to kill every white person you saw. Now you teach me Apache songs," Nalin laughed. It was the first time James had heard her laugh. The sound was like music. I still want to fight, Nalin said. But now I fight different way. I fight by helping my people survive, by keeping our ways alive, by not letting them break our spirits. That is a good fight, James said. They stood in comfortable silence. The desert night was cool and peaceful. In the distance, a coyote howled. The stars shined bright overhead. James, Nalin said, you saved my life that day. But you do more than that. You give me hope. You show me that not all white men are bad, that some can be good, can be friends. You saved me too, James replied. I was drowning in bad memories. You taught me how to let them go. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. You gave me peace, Nalin looked at him. In the moonlight, her face was soft. Peace is what we all need, she said. Peace for your people, peace for my people, peace inside our hearts. Yes, James said. Peace. But peace was about to become much harder to find. The next day, when James was working at the ranch, one of the other ranch hands rode up fast. His face was worried. McCarthy, Thompson wants to see you right now. The sheriff is here. James felt his stomach drop. He rode to the ranch house. Inside, Thompson sat at his desk. Next to him was Sheriff Miller, a hard man with cold eyes. McCarthy, the sheriff said, we need to ask you some questions. Some people say they have seen you riding toward the canyon country at night. That is Apache territory. What are you doing out there? James kept his face calm. His heart was pounding, but he did not let it show. The war had taught him how to lie when his life depended on it. I like to ride at night, James said. It is peaceful. Helps me think. Are you helping Apache refugees? The sheriff asked directly. No, sir. James lied. The sheriff stared at him for a long time. James did not look away. Finally, the sheriff turned to Thompson. Keep an eye on him, the sheriff said. If I find out he is hiding Apache runners, he will go to jail. After the sheriff left, Thompson looked at James. His face was unreadable. Are you doing what he said? Thompson asked quietly. James looked at his boss. He could lie, but something made him tell the truth. Yes, Thompson was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. I thought so. You are either very brave or very stupid, McCarthy. Maybe both. They are just people trying to survive, James said. I cannot turn them away. Thompson stood up and walked to the window. He looked out at the desert. Finally, he spoke. James rode hard to the canyon. The moon was only half full, giving little light. His mind raced with worry. The sheriff was suspicious. The bounty hunters were still looking. Time was running out. When he reached the canyon, he found Nalin waiting for him. She could tell from his face that something was wrong. The sheriff came to the ranch, James told her. He asked questions. He knows something. Nalin nodded slowly. She did not look surprised. More people came today, a family. Mother, father, 2 children. They are hiding in the back cave. How many people are here now? James asked. 10, Nalin said. Maybe more will come tomorrow. James sat down on a rock. This was bigger than he thought. They were not just hiding 1 or 2 people. They were running a whole escape route for Apache families fleeing the reservation. We need help, James said. Real help. Legal help. White man's law does not help Apache people, Nalin said bitterly. Maybe not usually, James agreed. But my boss, Mr. Thompson, he wants to help. His wife was Cherokee. He understands. Nalin looked doubtful but listened as James explained his idea. Thompson had connections. He knew the territorial governor. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a legal way to let some Apache families live off the reservation. Not all of them, but a small group. Enough to make a difference. Why would white men allow this? Nalin asked. Because some white men want peace too, James said. Not all of us want war and death. Thompson is one of the good ones. Nalin thought about this. Finally, she said, I will meet with him. But if this is a trap, I will fight. I will not go to reservation. It is not a trap, James promised. I trust Thompson. The next day, James brought Thompson to the canyon. The ranch owner came alone without his gun to show he meant peace. When Thompson saw how many Apache people were hiding in the canyon, his eyes widened. My God, McCarthy, he said quietly. You are running a whole underground railroad here. They have nowhere else to go, James said. Thompson walked through the canyon looking at the refugees. He saw the old woman Casa grinding corn. He saw children playing a quiet game with stones. He saw young men and women trying to make a life in hiding. He saw families who just wanted to live in peace. Nalin approached Thompson with her head high and her eyes fierce. She spoke in careful English. Your man James says you want to help. Why? What do you want from us? Thompson looked at her with respect. I want nothing from you. My wife was native. Her people suffered like your people suffer. Before she died, she made me promise to help if I ever could. I am keeping that promise. Nolan studied his face. James had learned that she was good at reading people. After a long moment, she nodded. Tell me your plan. They sat together and talked for hours. Thompson explained that the territorial government wanted peace. The Apache wars were expensive and bloody. If a small group of Apache families could prove they could live peacefully off the reservation, it might open a door for others. It is not much, Thompson admitted, but it is a start. What must we do? Nolan asked. You need to come forward, Thompson said. Tell your story. Show them you want peace, not war. Let me talk to the governor and the Indian agent. They will arrest me, Nolan said. Maybe, Thompson said honestly. But if we do nothing, the bounty hunters will find you eventually. At least this way we fight with law instead of guns. Nolan looked at James. He nodded. I think we should try. Thompson is a good man. For 3 days, Thompson worked his connections. He sent letters to the territorial governor. He talked to the Indian agent. He even talked to some newspaper men in town. He told them about the Apache families who wanted nothing but to live in peace. Some people in town were angry. They wanted all Apache people on reservations or dead, but other people listened. A few churchwomen started talking about the Apache children who needed help. A store owner who had lost his son in the Apache wars said he was tired of fighting and wanted peace. Public opinion started to shift, just a little. Then disaster struck. Tom, the bounty hunter who James had chased away weeks before, came back. He brought 6 men with him, all armed and dangerous. A young Apache boy who had been watching the canyon entrance came running to warn them. Men with guns coming! Many men. James grabbed his rifle. Get everyone to the back of the canyon, he told Nolan. Hide them in the deep caves. I will not hide, Nolan said. Her eyes flashed with the same fire he had seen the day he saved her. Please, James said. Think about the children. If you fight, they might get hurt. Nolan hesitated. Then she nodded. She helped get the families deeper into the canyon where they could hide. James stood at the canyon entrance with his rifle. His hands were steady. The war had taught him not to fear death. But he was afraid for Nolan and the others. They needed more time for Thompson's plan to work. Tom and his men appeared on the ridge above the canyon. They had more guns this time, more men. James counted 7 of them. McCarthy, Tom shouted down. We know you are hiding Apache runners down there. Send them out and maybe we will let you live. No, James shouted back. Leave now or I will shoot. Tom laughed. You are 1 man. We are 7. Do the math, friend, but then James heard horses behind him. He turned to see Thompson riding up with 5 ranch hands. They were all armed. Thompson rode up beside James. Make that 7 against 7, Thompson called to the bounty hunters. Much better odds, I think. Tom's smile faded. This is none of your business, Thompson. I am making it my business, Thompson replied. These people are under my protection now. You want them, you go through me. The standoff was tense. For a long moment, no one moved. Then more horses came. The sheriff arrived with 2 deputies. James's heart sank. The sheriff would side with the bounty hunters, but the sheriff surprised everyone. He rode between the 2 groups and held up his hand. No one is shooting anyone today, he said firmly. Thompson, I got word from the territorial governor. He wants to see this Apache woman and hear her story. Under my protection. No arrests, no bounties, just a meeting. That is my bounty, Tom yelled. I got legal right. Your bounty was revoked an hour ago, the sheriff said. He pulled out a paper. Official order from the governor's office. These Apache families are under territorial protection while their case is reviewed. Tom looked furious. This is not right. They are just Indians. They are people, Thompson said quietly but firmly. Same as you and me. Tom and his men left, angry and cursing. But they left. The legal paper in the sheriff's hand was stronger than their guns. When they were gone, Nolan came out from the canyon. She walked straight to the sheriff, her head high, her back straight. She looked like a queen, not a prisoner. I am Nolan, she said in clear English. I want to speak to your governor. I want to speak for my people. The sheriff looked at her with something like respect. Yes, ma'am. That can be arranged. 3 days later, a meeting was held in the territorial capital. Nolan stood before the governor, the Indian agent, and several territorial officials. James stood beside her. Thompson was there too, along with the newspaper men. Nalin told her story. She spoke in the English James had taught her. She told them about her family being killed, about her people dying on reservations, about children going hungry, about old traditions being destroyed. But she did not just talk about pain. She talked about hope. She talked about the Apache families who wanted to live peacefully, who wanted to farm and raise their children, who wanted to keep their language and traditions alive, but who also wanted to live side by side with white settlers in peace. "We do not want war," Nalin said. Her voice was strong and clear. "We never wanted war. We only want to live, to exist, to be free on land that was ours. You took everything from us. I am not asking for everything back. I am only asking for a small piece of land where we can live with dignity." The room was silent when she finished speaking. Even the hardest officials looked moved. One of the newspapermen was writing fast, capturing her words. The governor spoke. "This is highly unusual. The federal policy is clear about reservations." "The federal policy is not working," Thompson said, standing up. "We have been fighting Apache wars for 20 years. Maybe it is time to try peace instead." "What exactly are you proposing?" the Indian agent asked. Thompson laid out the plan. "A small piece of land near the canyon, not valuable for farming or mining, where a group of Apache families could settle. They would govern themselves but follow territorial law. They could keep their traditions. In return, they would live peacefully and not raid settlements." "It is an experiment," Thompson said. "If it works, maybe it becomes a model for other groups." The officials talked among themselves for a long time. Finally, the governor spoke. "I will approve a provisional settlement. 50 families, no more. The land near the canyon where they are already hiding. They have 6 months to prove they can live peacefully. If there are any problems, any raids, any violence, the agreement ends and they go to the reservation. Understood?" Nalin's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. She nodded. "Understood. Thank you. It was not everything. It was not fair. It was not justice for all the land taken and all the people killed. But it was something. It was a chance." James felt something break open in his chest. Hope. Real hope. For the first time in years, he believed things could get better. That peace was possible. Outside the building, Nalin turned to James. 6 months had passed since the territorial governor gave permission for the Apache settlement. James stood on a ridge overlooking the small village that had grown in the canyon. He could hardly believe how much had changed. Where there had been empty desert, now there were simple houses made of wood and adobe. Gardens grew in neat rows. Children played near the spring. Women worked together, grinding corn and making bread. Men built fences and tended to horses. Smoke rose from cooking fires. It looked like a real community. A place where people lived and worked and raised their families. A place of peace. James walked down into the village. People greeted him as he passed. "Hello, James," said Casa, the old medicine woman. She was teaching 3 young girls about healing herbs. The girls waved at him. Takota, the young man who had been one of the first refugees, came over. "James, we need your help. The schoolhouse roof needs fixing." James smiled. "I will help after lunch." Yes, there was a schoolhouse now. A small building where Apache children learned to read and write in both English and Apache. Nalin ran the school. She was a fierce teacher, demanding that the children learn both languages, both ways of life. "You must know the white man's world," she told the children, "but you must never forget who you are. You are Apache. Be proud." James walked to the school. Through the window he could hear Nalin teaching. Her voice was strong and clear. 20 children sat in rows practicing their letters. When the lesson ended and the children ran outside to play, James went inside. Nalin looked up from her desk and smiled. She smiled often now. The angry, hurt woman he had saved was still fierce, but she was no longer just surviving. She was living. "How are the students today?" James asked. "Good, very good. Little Ava can read a whole book now, and Takota's son can write his name in English and Apache." Nalin's pride was clear in her voice. They walked outside together. The afternoon sun was warm but not too hot. James looked around at the village with satisfaction. "Do you remember that first night?" Nalin asked. "When you brought me to the cave? I thought you were going to hurt me. I stayed awake all night with my knife ready." "I remember," James said. "I thought you were going to stab me in my sleep." They both laughed. It seemed like a long time ago now, though it had only been months. "Everything has changed," Nalin said quietly. Not just the village, me, you, everything. She was right. The settlement had brought more than 50 families now. The territorial government, seeing that the experiment was working, had allowed more families to come. There were almost 200 Apache people living in the canyon now, but more than that, attitudes were changing. Some of the white settlers who lived nearby had started to trade with the Apache families. A few had even become friends. It was slow change, and there were still many people who hated the Apache. But it was change, and James had changed too. His nightmares had almost completely stopped. When they did come, he knew how to handle them. He used the breathing techniques Nalan taught him. He sang the Apache songs. He let the bad memories come and go like clouds in the sky instead of holding on to them. He had found a purpose. He was not just a broken soldier anymore. He was a teacher, a builder, a bridge between two worlds. He taught English and reading at the school. He helped build houses. He went to town to trade and to speak with white settlers who were curious about the Apache village. Thompson came to visit often. He brought supplies and good news. The territorial newspapers had written positive stories about the settlement. Some people in the government were talking about creating more settlements like this one in other parts of the territory. "You two started something important," Thompson told James and Nalan one evening. They sat around a fire, eating dinner with several Apache families. "This could be a new way. Not war, not forced reservations, but people choosing to live together peacefully." "It is not perfect," Nalan said. "We lost so much. Our land, our people, our old way of life. This is just a small piece of what we had." "I know," Thompson said gently, "and I am sorry for that. But this small piece is better than nothing. And maybe in time it will grow bigger." Nalan nodded. She had learned to accept what was possible, even while remembering what was lost. It was a hard balance, but she managed it with grace. Later that night, after the other families had gone to their homes, James and Nalan sat by the spring. The stars were bright overhead. A cool wind blew through the canyon. "Do you ever think about leaving?" Nalan asked. "Going back to your old life?" James thought about it. He could leave. He could go work on another ranch far from here. He could try to forget about the Apache settlement and go back to being alone, but he did not want to. This was his home now. These people were his family, not in blood but in spirit. They had all been broken by war and loss. They had all found a way to heal together. "No," James said, "I am not leaving. This is where I belong." Nalan looked at him with understanding. "You know, when I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She said that sometimes the spirits send us exactly what we need, even if we do not know we need it. She said that healing often comes from unexpected places." "What do you mean?" James asked. "I mean that I needed you," Nalan said simply. "Not just to save my life that day, but to show me that not all white men are enemies. To teach me English so I could speak for my people. To help me see that peace is possible." "And I needed you," James replied, "to teach me how to let go of the war, to show me that I could still do good things, even after doing so many bad things, to give me a reason to live instead of just existing." They sat in comfortable silence. Over the past months, their friendship had grown deep and strong. They were not husband and wife. They had never spoken of romantic love, but they had something deeper than that. They were partners in peace. They were friends who had saved each other. "What will you do now?" James asked. "Now that the settlement is established?" "I will keep teaching," Nalan said. "The children are our future. They must know both worlds. They must be strong in both ways, and they must never forget who they are." "And I will keep helping," James said. "Building, teaching, making bridges between your people and mine." "Our people," Nalan corrected gently. "They are all our people now. Apache and white. We are all just people trying to live." James nodded. She was right. The lines that once seemed so clear had blurred. People were people. Some were good, some were bad, regardless of the color of their skin or the language they spoke. A young Apache woman named Ayana approached them. She had been one of the refugees Nalan helped escape. Now she was pregnant with her first child. "Nalan," Ayana said shyly, "will you help me choose a name for my baby? One that honors the old ways but also works in the new world?" Nalan smiled and stood up. "Of course. Come, let us talk." As Nalan walked away with Ayana, James stayed by the spring. He looked up at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, he had been a dead man walking, empty inside, haunted by memories he could not escape. Now he was alive. Really alive. He had a purpose. He had friends. He had peace. He thought about his brother, the one he lost in the war. For years he had carried guilt about his brother's death. But Nalin had taught him something important. She taught him that honoring the dead did not mean drowning in guilt. It meant living well, living with purpose, making the world better in their memory. "I am sorry I could not save you," James whispered to the stars, thinking of his brother. "But I saved others. I hope that means something. I hope you would be proud." The wind blew gently as if in answer. James felt something release in his chest. The last piece of the heavy weight he had been carrying. It did not mean he forgot. It meant he finally forgave himself. The next morning, James woke early. He had started sleeping better, waking with energy instead of dread. He walked through the village as the sun rose, painting the canyon walls orange and gold. He saw families starting their day. Fires being lit, bread being made, children being dressed, horses being fed, all the normal activities of life. Life that continued. Life that mattered. At the school, he prepared for the day's lessons. Today, he would teach the older children about numbers and mathematics. Nalin would teach them Apache history and traditions. Together, they were raising a generation that could walk in both worlds. Thompson arrived at mid-morning with a surprise. The territorial governor wanted to visit the settlement. He wanted to see the success with his own eyes. He was bringing reporters and officials. Nalin gathered the community together. "This is important," she told them. "The governor comes to see if we keep our promise. We must show him we live in peace. We must show him our children are learning. We must show him that we are making a good life here." The village prepared. Women cleaned and organized. Men worked on projects to show their skills. Children practiced their reading and writing. Everyone wanted to make a good impression. When the governor arrived 3 days later, he was impressed. He saw the school, the gardens, the houses, the happy children. He talked to families. He watched the children read in both English and Apache. He saw people working together, living together, building a future together. "This is remarkable," the governor said to Thompson. "I did not believe it would work. But here it is, proof that peace is possible." The governor made a speech to the village. He promised continued support.